Well, good morning still for another 46 minutes, everybody. Updating you on the weather today. Now, I don't plan on doing weather every day, but we're in an active situation with the heat, humidity, and storms. So that's why I've been doing them yesterday and then today as well. So starting out with a little bit of a meteorology lesson here. We've got yellow lines here are pressure, so those isobars, lines of constant pressure. And you can notice this closed circle here in southeastern South Dakota, pushing into southwestern Minnesota. This is a low, a surface low, which means that there's air rising, and that's kind of being filled in with some just shallow low clouds right now. So it's still stable, but as we're heating things up ahead of it, in Minnesota with plenty of humidity as well, that's going to destabilize as that low continues to push into eastern Minnesota here later in the day today. We've got some high dew points again today, and we'll look at the models. Not much going on, nothing to show you on radar right now. Of course, we had the storms overnight. They luckily were not severe in the Twin Cities, but there were warnings just north and west as those storms continue to weaken. But timing-wise, just hot and humid afternoon if you're at the pool or lake. But as we head into the mid-afternoon, we're starting to see some showers pop 3, 4 o'clock in far western and west central Minnesota, maybe up around Alexandria. Some storms starting to pop here is 5 o'clock. And then by 6 o'clock, we're starting to see those storms fill in more here off to the west. West of St. Cloud, out around Wilmer, and then up around maybe Brainerd by potentially 5, 6 o'clock. And then those storms will continue to fill in, strengthen, and push east, and then starting to bow out again like storms did last night, producing wind. Now, this is 8 o'clock in the Twin Cities. We could have a long line of storms developing. And again, the main threat are high wind gusts out of these storms as they move east. But like last night, there were a couple tornado warnings, if you noticed. These storms are not supercellular. They don't produce the big tornadoes, but they do produce what we call sometimes gustnadoes, just like putting your paddle through the water when you're rowing a boat. You get those little swirls that briefly develop and then kind of fade out. The exact same thing happens on the edge of these wind gusts. So sometimes we can see those brief embedded, usually weaker tornadoes that do develop. And then storms passed east here by 9, 10 o'clock. So timing with these storms are going to be earlier tonight. But again, the potential for some wind gusts here as we look at the models. And again, like yesterday, don't pay attention to exactly where the wind gusts are. Just pay attention to the general line that starts to develop here. 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. This is when we could have some of the higher wind gusts. And again, some of these could be severe. Seeing 50 knot wind gusts. That equates to about 60 miles an hour, which are some severe wind gusts for some areas. But as you watch that line spread east, it continues across Wisconsin. So another bow echo kind of night. And in terms of what we're looking at for that risk, we do have a slight risk of severe weather, which includes pretty much the whole central and southern part of Minnesota into western Wisconsin. And again, if you look at the probabilities from Storm Prediction Center, slight tornado chance, but the biggest threat that in that hashed area really is what we're looking at as a high wind threat and the potential for some large hail too. So hail and wind primarily, and again, can't rule out an embedded tornado, at least briefly. I want to go back to this, and basically, this is not going to sound very scientific, but in meteorology, we will put on as many things as we can, and where everything overlaps is the area to watch. So I'm going to put on CAPE, convective available potential energy, and you can see that really starting to fill in here. Hopefully it's not too hard to read, but already a lot of energy in southeastern South Dakota, southwestern Minnesota as we're destabilizing that atmosphere. And then I'm going to put on supercell composite. So it's one of the indices that we look at that measures a variety of instability factors for severe weather. Now, it's not a supercell kind of day, but it still gives us an idea of instability. And then put on those dew points. There's a lot of that. And then I'm going to add some mass divergence, which basically means where is air either coming together or separating. It tells us where there's basically a frontal boundary where air could be pushing upward, or where air is sinking, where we have high pressure. And you can see all the colors come together over eastern South Dakota and southwestern Minnesota. So not very scientific. It looks like what a 5-year-old might draw. But that's what we're looking at for that potential for severe weather. So again, a slight risk of severe storms. Timing-wise today, more like a 4, 5, 6 p.m. western Minnesota. Metro could be about 7, 8, 9 o'clock for those storms. Still looking hot, though. Still low to mid-90s today and humid out ahead of it. A drop in humidity, but still pretty warm tomorrow. Still close to 90, and then looking pretty nice here as we head into Monday, Tuesday. I don't know why there isn't an icon there Tuesday, but Tuesday could have some spotty storms and then maybe an isolated thunderstorm on Thursday, but a little break from the humidity before. It looks like we're heating it back up by next weekend, probably more 90s again.